We'll call this meeting to order, and if you will, please stand. And we'll ask our Mayor Pro-Tem to lead us in a invocation.
Our lives in the way that you continue to provide for all of us in the United States. Father, we ask you continue to be with our service people as they serve us overseas and also here in the States. Father, we ask you to be with their families, see them safely home, Father. Father, we also ask you to bless this council, bless this country. We're in dire need of blessing, Father. Help us see the way, guide us and lead us as only you can do. Father, we pray for all these things in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. And we'll ask Councilman Helms to lead us in our pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. For all.
You may be seated. Well, as far as introduction and welcome, I think most everybody here is familiar with everybody here, right?
Yeah.
We thank you for being here, and if we need you, we'll call on you too. Okay? And this time I will ask for approval of the agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I'd like to add something to the agenda,
Okay.
if I can, prior to approval. A discussion on the ordinance amendment for parking fees, specifically how it applies to service members.
So that was a motion.
So that, he would like to add that to, so we got a motion and a second, then we had discussion. If that is what y'all would like to do, I would need that added to Mr. Helms's motion and then a vote on that.
Okay?
I make a motion, we add that to
I'll-
Mr. Helms.
I
What
would need
is
Mr.
it?
Helms to
Tell me
add
what,
that.
clarified.
So I'd like to discuss or propose that service members that have received a Purple Heart, and it's normally on their license plate, and/or a Medal of Honor, that they be not charged to park. Similar to other communities in our area, this was something that was brought to my attention. I give credit where credit is due by Dorothy Royal, and we've done a little bit of research, and there are other cities that are doing the very same thing for parking fees for the veterans that qualify.
So if that's what you would like to do, Mr. Helms, I would just need amendment to your motion, because you have the original motion, and then I would need a vote.
Oh, okay, I'll make an amendment and we can discuss it.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carried. Okay. Now we have the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. If there's nothing else to be added to that, I ask we have a motion to accept this consent agenda.
I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Stephanie, when do we discuss what I just made a motion on?
That would be item number 7.
Okay.
All right, now I'll turn it over to Kyle, I guess.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Planning Director Kimes and Utilities Director Price are going to give you a presentation, one part of it being an update to the AMI project and how the work is proceeding with that and what to expect. And then we're going to carry that over into a initial discussion about right-of-way clearing and the ordinance enforcement. So I'll turn it over to staff to give council that presentation. And then, of course, We'd like to hear any questions, concerns, comments that council may have as we move forward in both of these programs. So Price, if you'll take it away.
I appreciate it, Mayor, Council. Good morning. Town staff has been working on policies going forward to maintain the right-of-way and respect the practices that have been set forth in the past and try to find a merger of those. Unfortunately, the utility department and the other departments in town have drastically different needs for that right-of-way. As such, we felt it needed to take two different policies. First half of the presentation given by myself would be how the utility is going to handle their needs. Second half would be handled by my colleague, Ms. Kimes, for the rest of the departments. The major thing pushing this chronologically, at least, is the AMI project. This is the current schedule. Earlier this week on June 14th, survey crews started surveying the town, starting on the southern end. The purpose of this survey is to identify which properties need additional work, such as right-of-way clearing, elevation changes, etc. During the survey, we are getting lists weekly of everything that needs to happen for Suez to complete this transition. So minor things such as water leaks, elevation changes, replacing and updating components are happening in real time as the survey crew identifies them. We intentionally delayed the clearing of vegetation so that we've already sent one notice out, we plan to send another one out. That way homeowners have an opportunity to clear the vegetation in a way that they like. That being said, by July 15th, we do have a very small window between July 15th and August 15th to clear the vegetation that are identified as a problem. That's when town staff will go out and clear the vegetation around the meter boxes. August 15th, October 15th, Suez is exchanging every meter in town to complete this transition. There are other components to this program, but that's what affects the right-of-way. This is a abridged version of the sections, just for spacing. If you like full sections, I'd be glad to provide them. Section 1826C, where meter is placed so as to be unobstructed and accessible at all times to the meter reader. No plantings or any other items can be access shall be placed within 3-foot diameter of the meter. So 1.5 feet to either side of that meter should be nothing but grass. So the guys that get in there and do their work. Section 18-26J, a owner shall not cover or block any utility assets such as manholes, cleanouts, meters, or valve boxes with landscaping, block walls, fencing, or any other obstruction that limits access. Obstructions will be removed to a point to regain access and not replaced. There are other laws that govern this, but this is added to utility ordinances. This is a good detail I found that shows what we're dealing with. This is all the utilities that are underground underneath the right-of-way. It's spaced out so for clarity, but in all actuality, it's not actually laid out this way. We try not to put stuff underneath pavement. That means we got to stop traffic every time we have to access it. In all actuality, in Surf City, all this utility is pushed to one side of the road to the other, which makes it very congested. The majority of utility-related tasks, the entire right-of-way is required to clear in order to maintain a safe work environment. This is a joint job site between Surf City and DOT on South Shore. You can see that's just a pretty shallow road, hole, how much right-of-way we had to take. To make safe digging practices, Class C soils, which is all of Surf City, we have to dig in a 1 to 1.5 slope. That means every foot we go down, we got to dig 1.5 feet across. We go as 12 feet deep on a regular basis. Some of our lines are 40 feet deep. So as you can imagine, we need every bit of right-of-way we could get, and we need it accessible. In the event of a right-of-way is not cleared, tasks are delayed and costs are increased. In many cases, the homeowner demands restitution for removed items since they had held the impression, however falsely that may be, that they were allowed or encouraged to install items in the right-of-way. This is a broken sewer line. As you can see, there's a palm tree parked right next to it and a fence surrounding it. I don't know if you can see it too clearly, but you see that little yellow handle? That's a probing rod. That is what that right-of-way actually is. We were able to work with the homeowner on this and get things moved, and they were more than gracious to help us out with that. A lot of times, if it's an emergency situation, we have to just go remove it and work it out with the homeowner later. Plantings and right-of-way hold a increased risk to utilities. Routes will seek out sewer lines and eventually interrupt services for large portions of town. That is a sewer line. That is a root mat that we pulled out of it. Plants love gray water, nutrient rich, plenty of it. Unfortunately, the cleaning equipment out there, it doesn't take care of this. The only thing we could do is cut it out and replace the whole line. In terms of enforcement, like I said, utilities is a little bit different, just due to the nature of the job. The utility department will clear the vegetation or obstacle that is interfering with the proper function of the utility. Here's a good detail. I'm sorry I can't blow it up for you, but that first tree is growing into that sewer line. In this particular case, town staff will come out, remove that tree, dig down, replace that line, grade it back and seed it, but the tree will not go back. But we won't take any enforcement action on a homeowner either. We're just there to get the job done. No fines, no nasty letters, nothing like that. Just go get the job done, but the tree won't go back. You got any questions for me before I turn over to Ms. Kimes? Thank you.
Good morning. So I am going to address how our ordinances talk about the right-of-ways in general, not related to utilities, but just a general, what the expectation of our ordinance is for right-of-ways, which is found in Chapter 16. So basically, Section 16:4 says, nothing can go in the right-of-way from right-of-way line to right-of-way line except mailboxes. That's what is exempt. Obviously, driveways can, go in there with concrete or whatever material. But as far as any kind of structure, planting, anything like that, our ordinance does not allow anything in the right-of-way. This ordinance is similar to NCDOT or rules and other municipalities. This is not an anomaly for us. So then how do we enforce that? So sections 1617 and 1618 are going to talk about that. Basically, someone's going to inspect the streets on a regular basis and make sure that nothing is out there. And then we're going to figure out how to get it off. Well, that starts our whole notice of violation process. Our notice of violation process includes sending a letter and then giving the homeowner 30 days to remove it. If they do not remove it, it is then removed by the town, whether we do that by contract or whether we do that by in-house forces. And then that is at the owner's expense. Any appeal to this violation should be made within 30 days. We have it right now at the Citation Appellate Committee, who does most of our violations, which would be our parking tickets that are issued by PD. Any parking tickets issued by Pivot are done by Pivot. So if PD does any, and then trash cart violations, we get a lot of those. Citizen Appellate Committee, trash in the right-of-way, that's something we're trying to work on as well. So those, come in. Those are the main things that do that right now. So this is intended to apply to any obstruction of any nature, kind, and description upon any street, wharf, or any other public space in town. So why do we care if the right-of-way is clean or not? I mean, why is that important to the town? So we, as staff, kind of sat around and bounced back the different reasons. I like this picture because it kind of allows you to see the different things, the black line being the property owners. As many of you know, the property owners in any town across North Carolina think that they own to the asphalt. That's a very common misconception. So I wanted to show this because the dashed or the horizontal, the vertical lines is the right-of-way. So it shows how far into the yards the right-of-way goes. Out here, our roads are not all actually in the center of the road. So it may be like on North New River, it's a 100-foot right-of-way. Well, that road was built on one side, which would eventually give you the ability to just build another 2 lanes if we ever needed to 4-lane it. But it means that somebody has a whole lot of right-of-way in their front yard and somebody only has like 20 foot of right-of-way in their front yard. But this is just a general, if the streets were built the way that they are kind of supposed to be. So we want to maintain site triangles from a safety standpoint. We want people to be able to pull out of their intersections and not get T-boned. Clear recovery zone. If I'm driving down the road and I look at my cell phone, which I shouldn't be doing, and I veer off slightly, there should be enough area that I can pull back onto the road without hitting somebody, and that's based on national standards and speed. But I should be able to safely get back onto the road. Emergency vehicle clearance. If you're meeting an ambulance or police or whatever, people need to be able to get over. But on the reverse side of that, if the ambulance is going to get somebody, they need to actually be able to pull over onto the shoulder and not have to park in the road and mess up traffic. Street maintenance. I have said many times, and I don't know if you've heard me say this, but the quickest way to destroy a road is to allow stormwater to sit on top of it. It undermines the subgrade, it ruins the asphalt. Once the asphalt starts alligator cracking, all that water goes in and messes up your subgrade, your road falls apart, and instead of having to put a new lift of asphalt on it, you now have to rebuild a whole road. You go from a $200,000 project to $1 million project. So it's very important to be able to maintain that road, to be able to get the stormwater away from it, and to be able to do maintenance on a as needed before it becomes an, oh my goodness, the road is failing situation. And then solid waste collection, you know, on the island 2 days a week during the summer, we have the trucks out there. We have all these trash carts out there. We're trying to get people walking and riding bicycles on the paths out there and not disrupt that. So we need to have an area that you can put your trash out there and it doesn't have to sit on the sidewalk or on the bike lane where we're trying to safely move pedestrians. And then fire hydrant maintenance, obviously around the fire hydrants, it's important that the fire trucks can get to a hydrant, and we have trouble with hydrants being blocked. Fire is staying on top of that, but that is definitely a concern for us. And then Price has already talked to you about utility assets and the need to access those. So what is their proposal? What are we thinking about doing? In the case of the street right-of-way related issues, which are from this side of it based on Chapter 16, not Chapter 18, the town will require the property owner to remove the vegetation or obstruction located within 12 feet of edge of pavement or 5 feet behind the sidewalk. If the right-of-way is narrower than clearing, if it's narrower than that distance, then the clearing will occur to the right-of-way line. So our streets out here go from, I think the smallest one that I've looked at is a right-of-way of 38 feet. So you have a 38-foot right-of-way with 20 foot of asphalt, that leaves you about 9 foot on each side of actual right-of-way before you get into the people's yard. And again, we go as high as 100 feet on the NCDOT, and then I think a couple of our town name like New Bern, some of those are actually 100-foot right-of-ways as well. So in an effort to not take somebody's perceived whole front yard, 12 feet is kind of what we're looking at. It allows a vehicle to get over in the case of an emergency. It allows that clear recovery distance because when you're looking at our speeds on the island, they meet the requirements of the clear recovery. It allows the site triangles. That seems to be a good starting point. The 5 feet behind sidewalks, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but our sidewalks are getting overgrown. When the sidewalks get overgrown, that pushes the pedestrian closer to the road and makes it less safe for the pedestrian, and then they end up just walking in the road. So that was the 5 feet behind the sidewalk, unless the sidewalk is the right-of-way line. So the example picture is just posts and ropes. So if it is something as simple as posts and ropes, we can easily remove those. If the homeowner does not remove them, they would be given 30 days, and then the town could remove them.
Amy, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back one, please?
Yes, sir.
So where it says 12 feet from the edge of the pavement or 5 feet behind the sidewalk, what's going to be the deciding factor which way we go with that? So is it what gives you more?
If we don't have sidewalk at all, then we'll just go from edge of pavement.
Okay,
If we have sidewalk,
Then it's 5 feet.
Then it's 5 feet, yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
All right, so steps moving forward. How do we want to implement this? So we are developing a policy handbook for enforcement, creating provisions on enforcement procedures and what may constitute an exemption, et cetera. We have some fun things out here, like maybe a building's built a little bit in the right of way. We're not going to tell you to to tear down your 1950s building and rebuild it. None of them that I know of that are in the right of way are close enough that is within that 12-foot or whatnot. But looking at those kinds of things, we're going to do our public outreach through social media and the town website. So we'll do out kind of like we did with the code enforcement spotlight, know your regulations, know your rules, know what you're supposed to do, those kinds of things, trying to do some picture type things with diagrams that are very clear versus all the words that are in the ordinance, because people tend to just, peruse over those and not really pay attention to them. Letters mailed to individuals with a 30-day notice in November. Our original intent is to do, like we did with the beach addressing, just a mass mailer that goes to everybody for 2 reasons. 1, you may have something in the right-of-way that needs to be cleaned out. Or 2, you're probably thinking about putting something in the right-of-way that doesn't need to go there, because that is happening at an increasing rate. So we are constantly stopping people and saying, hey, this isn't supposed to go there. The ordinance says you're not supposed to. And they say, yeah, but my neighbor has it. And we say, yes, and we're getting ready to address that. Starting very soon, we're working on a policy. We have notified you, but just letting people know. Also, there's a high change of ownership. So if you've bought recently, this is a good chance to get these ordinances out there, and just letting people know. So code enforcement, being Scott, will provide a list. So once this 30 days, and the reason we're going all the way to February is if we do it in November and we give them 30 days, that's Thanksgiving, that's Christmas, that's just a lot of holiday time. So Scott wouldn't actually go out until probably February. He would ride everywhere, come up with a list of everybody that he perceives as non-complying. And then we will also, during that time, establish a variance committee, which we think right now will probably be a staff level where you can come in and say, I need this here for this reason. And as staff, we can say yes or no. Price and I probably shouldn't be on that because we think the right-of-way should be clear. But we will have a variance committee to talk through different things and see if they should be left. We will also, in March, once we've come up with that list, we're going to confirm whether or not they actually are in the right-of-way. So we'll go out and look at the 12-foot. We'll look at the surveys from the plats that we have online to see, hey, is this a 38-foot right-of-way? Is it a 45-foot, a 50, a 60, a 75, or a 100, or any other random street that I haven't seen yet in there? So for phased enforcement, our intent is to divide the town into 8 districts, similar to what utilities use. So they have 8 districts set up. We'll have to include the canals in that because they are not in the sewer districts as currently set up, or the water districts, I'm sorry. So enforcement will be completed by districts. We'll send letters to homeowners who are in violation. Homeowners can ask for a variance, so we'll lay out in there how do you ask for a variance, how all of that happens. And then we will verify that the items did not receive a variance and remove the item, whether that's by town staff or by contract staff. So that is the basic thought process. As we go to each district, we will only send the letters to the district that we are currently working in, because my guess is that this isn't going to happen overnight, and we want to make sure when we start a new district that they remember that they got a letter 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year, however long it takes. So that is
just real quick, it's just an admin note, but you have February, April, March, April 2022, right?
yes.
Okay.
Neither one. We didn't catch that. Yes, sir.
My question is, how long do you think this is gonna take?
I think that's going to be dependent on the town itself, on the members. If everybody asks for a variance and we have to sit down and do variance reviews for every single person, that's going to extend the time before we can even start enforcement. There are areas of town that have little encroachment, and there are areas of town that it's, every lot for 4 blocks. So the districts are going to take different amount of times, I think, based on kind of where they're at. Everything closer to the pier has a lot more stuff in the right of way. As you get away from the pier and the previously where everybody used to park wherever before we instituted parking, you're going to find less. It's going to take a while.
Now, okay, on, what did we say on private streets?
The way that the ordinance is written, it is all streets within the town. So that gives us the opportunity to do state, local, and privately maintained streets.
Thank you, ma'am.
One minute. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let me, if you don't mind, let me play devil's advocate here. I think it's important for us to go back and look at our old ordinance that we had, because I think it's probably going to be pretty consistent with what you're probably going to propose now, as far as being in the right of way. Human nature being what human nature is, when someone comes down and buys or builds, they're going to claim as much out to the road, as you said, as they possibly can. Don't fault them, I understand that. But still, I think that went against our ordinance. Our biggest problem as a town is we did not have code enforcement at that time to go out and take advantage and look and correct those when they were being done. Also, one of the things you mentioned is the resale of property or houses. When someone resells, if the person prior to them went out where they wasn't supposed to go in the right of way, and they buy that, they still think that that's part of their property, which it's not. It's actually in the right of way. And my only suggestion to that is when people come down and buy or build, they need to do their due diligence as far as ordinances go and as far as the building codes and all that. So with that being said, this is a monumental task. This is an elephant in a small room. And we got to be careful what we do. We need to be consistent with how we handle it. And we need to do, because basically the ordinances throughout the state of North Carolina and most municipalities is you don't encroach in the right of way. Bottom line.
Yes, sir.
I know that we have fences. I know we have buildings in some cases right up to the line. We have structures. We have aesthetic figurines or whatever put in places. We have a lot of different things in the right of way. And people did not like the fact of water standing on the roads, as you mentioned. And so therefore they extended their right of way. Some of the complaints we've gotten, I think, in the past has to do with flower beds that are in the right of way. They get washed out or washed in. If they were not in that right of way, then that probably would not occur. But they're trying to, and I understand that, they're trying to negate the water going into their property from the water that's maintaining on the road or puddling on the road. So I think when we go into it, we need to be vigilant with what we're doing. We need to be certainly understanding what we're doing and be consistent with it. This is not going to be an overnight task. It's not going to be an over 2 or 3 months task. It's going to be a while. But we need to be able to go back and look, and we're going to have all kinds of excuses thrown at us, and you know that. I bought this with the understanding, blah, blah, blah. That may be true, but that doesn't change the law, doesn't change the statutes, it doesn't change the right-of-way ordinance. They have to come in compliance, and we need to work with them and trying to get them in compliance, whatever that might be. And if we have some, and we will have some, that's going to stand and not want to do anything and want the town to take it on. And if we do that, then we need to have a method of doing that as least invasive as we can, but still hold them accountable. Thank you.
And Mr. Fowler, one of the things that we do now on all new constructions, and they have been doing it for a while, we don't have it for everybody, is we are requiring that final site survey. So we actually have surveys for all the new homes going in that has all that information, requiring them to have their state stormwater permit number on there, which is stuff that's not relevant to us, but still they call us. So we are trying to make sure that any time that we need a survey, we're getting a survey, and that we're maintaining those in a public record format, that you can call me and ask me for your house survey if you don't know where your right-of-way is. A lot of that we don't have, but we are working, at least on all the new stuff, and we are working towards getting that.
So,
If we get the business,
Registration program?
registration program, we need to notify all the landscapers and our yard maintenance people of these new rules. Because a lot of these yards that are encroaching in the right of way is because that's the way they were designed by the landscaper.
So,
And, they weren't, evidently they didn't worry about the right of way.
and
And the homeowner, I know for sure didn't worry about the right of way. So, that's the reason we end up in trouble.
well, and I met yesterday with OpenGov, who is will be creating that form in Viewpoint, and there will be a drop-down menu in which you will choose your business type from, and then I will be able to query a report where I pull all landscapers. So one of my thoughts in talking with them is that it'll be something where if council needs to reach out to a particular type of business, then we can query that. Or if we're looking at hurricane reentry, Pivot is doing that, I can send them a spreadsheet that has all of the contractors on it so that they have good contact information for these people. So that is one thing that we could do.
Thank you, ma'am.
so I just had one thing. One, I commend you for the plan of action and milestone that you've presented. Looks like a lot of thought went into it with you and your staff, so thank you for that. But what I don't see, or what's not clear to me, it's an incremental approach to try to bring folks into compliance, which is great intent. But at what point along that timeline are you going to go ahead and take the action to clear the right-of-way and then charge the homeowner? Where in that timeline will that take place?
So for each district, when we start that district, they'll get their letter. They have 30 days from receipt of that letter. According to everything that I've read, you assume 3 days for receipt of that letter.
Okay,
If nothing is done and nobody comes to us for, to ask for a variance or whatnot, then at that time, everything will be verified, the list will be, so Scott and I can't do that, the clearing ourselves. So we're still kind of working on whether that'll be in-house or by contract. But once those decisions are made, that list will be provided and it'll start in a systematic way of, we're going to start on this street and work this way or whatever. But it will be, should be hopefully within 30 days after the 30 days. So it gives us a month to go through and look at this district, find out who is still in violation. And some people may call, we get a lot of, can I just do it this fall? My house is rented until the end of the summer. Can I just do it this fall? So those will be some things that we're willing to work with. If you have a schedule of when you're going to do it and we're confident that you're going to do it, then we can allow you that time. There will be a spreadsheet that has all that in it. And then if they don't meet those times, then we would start
so
either
you
town
got,
staff or contract staff.
I see the letters go out in November. You're going to give them not only November, but all of December. January is where that could potentially start in District 1 if you're going to label them that way.
So November is really a mass mailer of you don't know your ordinances. This is your first chance. We get, and Scott can tell you this, we get a lot of calls that I didn't know this. I didn't know it was in the ordinance. They get a little grumpy with us when we tell them you should read the ordinances. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's very good information on what you can and can't do. So this is really making sure that that first excuse of we didn't know the ordinances is out there, that there is an education component so that everybody knows it. Because again, most people think they own to the edge of asphalt. So that's one of those pictures, like this guy will need to be in there to show you don't own to the edge of the asphalt. This is the area that we're talking about. So the first one is just really letting everybody know. Some of those people in the last district that we're going to do may go ahead and clear their lot then, which is what we're hopeful will happen. We're hopeful that everyone will start clearing and then it'll take less time to clear the districts. But worst case scenario, we will send new letters when your district begins. And that will be the true starting point for your district. There's just too much to tackle at one time.
I got it, thank you.
Amy, I got a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
I think you're right on helping educate with the due diligence thing that they should be doing anyway. But with the right-of-ways, the variances you're speaking of, do you have a list? Have you sat down, the group has sat down and kind of made a possible suggestion of a list that could be considered for variances? And the reason I'm asking that, here again, I'm a consistent fella. I want us to be consistent so we can defend it. And there's a reason for that, because if you're inconsistent, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry can claim anything. But if we're consistent with what we've got and the variances we're making, then I think that would help everyone out, to show that we're transparent and we're treating everybody fairly. Because all people's wants or needs are different. But if we have a set guideline to go by and they can see what it is, then they can say, what can I do, and make those things, and hopefully find a median. But I think whatever we do and whatever variance we go, we need to be consistent with it, because if you don't, we're gonna come up and say, well, I don't understand why I can't get a variance for it. My neighbor down here got a variance for it, and they live on 3rd Street, and I don't have one. I'm up here on 9th Street. What's the difference? So we're gonna have to be able to defend that.
And we have talked significantly about that. For me, one of the biggest things is we require street trees in our new subdivisions, but then we're going to tell everybody on the island they've got to cut down their tree. So there are things like that that we're looking at and lists that we're coming up with. And then also, you know, on the privately maintained streets, there may be something a little bit different, because most of the privately maintained streets on the island were because they wanted to keep the trees. That was a lot of the subdivisions that are private on the island. It was significantly about that. So we are working on that list. That would be the staff level variance that we would be able to issue. And then things above that, we would not be able to issue. But that will be part of the whole policy as we're putting that together. We just wanted to kind of give you a review of the direction we're moving right now.
Thank you, ma'am.
I got a statement to make. If you're gonna be consistent and you're gonna keep us out of trouble, then you're gonna have to be consistent. Just because your property is rented, I'm sorry, but if you give them till, say, September before they clear it, we're gonna get all kind of hassles with that, say, from June till September. They gonna come up here and bring it up 15 times during that time. When you say your stuff has to be off in 30 days, then there is no variance as far as the rental, because
The time.
if you do that, then the other people are gonna be harping at you, they gonna be harping at us, and they gonna say it's not consistent. If you're gonna be consistent, then be consistent all the way across the board. You're fair to everybody. That's what I've said we need to do, is be fair to everybody. It doesn't matter what size your house is, how much money you got, it don't matter to me, because you're the same as the person next door to you, and you've got to treat them all the same. If you don't, then we're gonna have problems. If you do, then they can't fuss about nothing, because everybody is being treated fairly. Everybody's being treated out of the same spoon, and therefore they can't complain. Some of them will say, well, you're treating this person with a gold spoon and I'm getting a regular spoon. No, that's not right. If my yard has trees, my neighbor's yard doesn't have trees, and you make him move his trees and you don't make me move my trees for some reason, then they gonna be fussing. And I don't wanna put up with the fussing, for the simple reason, when you make an ordinance, it's the same ordinance for everybody. And if you treat them all alike, and you're fair to everybody, then, and you go by the ordinance, and I'm sorry, they all need to be moved. I know some of them's not gonna like it, but they're in the right of way and it's causing problems. And so for Price, when he goes to, repair a sewer line, when the fire department goes down there, and we run into this all the time, we can't even get to the hydrant to hook up to. Well, when your neighbor's house is on fire beside of you and I can't get to the hydrant, they ain't gonna, that neighbor, the one that's burning, he ain't gonna be real happy about that, us not being able to get to that hydrant. So that's why I say, you gotta be fair across the board. Whatever the ordinance is, that's what we need to do. And these variances, you better be careful with that because you're gonna run into problems.
So Scott and I are very happy to have everything completely black and white. The limiting of variances for us will make it a lot easier. On the flip side of that, you may get calls because Scott and I are mean. So, but limiting variances from our standpoint of enforcing this will be a significant help for us. It is, because we constantly run into that now when we try to keep somebody from putting something in the right of way, and there's a 3-foot tall wall, landscaping wall in the right of way right beside it. Even though we tell them this is something that we're getting ready to tackle, they still install it.
Well, the only thing I can say to that is, if they install it and you've told them, then when you get that letter and their 30 days is up, then you need to, if they don't remove it, then we need to go move it. And it's at their expense because they knew that the wall wasn't supposed to be there. Now, it's like Buddy said, the old ordinance, we didn't enforce. That's our fault. We didn't enforce that. It's the town's fault because we didn't enforce it. But now it's time to enforce it because it's infringing on the fire department. It's infringing on the maintenance department that has to work on these sewer lines and everything. And it's gotta be out of the right of way, period. So,
I do want to be clear when we're talking about old ordinance versus new ordinance, the allowance of things in the right of way was not a part of that changed. So
Okay.
nothing, you have never been able to legally place things in the right of way.
Right.
That is not, so I don't want, if anybody's actually watching at home, I don't want them to think that previously we were allowing things in the right of way and we just made up a new ordinance. That portion never changed. Some of the enforcement and the way that we're gonna go about it is what has changed.
right, I knew the ordinance was basically the same, but we didn't enforce it as strongly as we need to now because this town has grown 4 times what it was when I first come here. And this putting stuff in the right of way, it's gotta stop. And so I commend you for tackling this. This is not gonna be a whole lot of fun, but it needs to be done because it's getting detrimental to the town.
Hey, Amy.
Hey.
So I think everyone agrees that education is going to be the answer here. So I think one of the biggest boards here on the island that probably could help you in relaying this message is going to be the Board of Realtors. There's a hot market that we're in. There's a lot of homes that are for sale. The property disclosure statement, ask every seller, are you in violation of any city code? Are you encroaching? Does your property have any encroachments? So you answer yes, no, or no representation. Most people here don't know that they should be answering yes to violations because they have not been educated to know that, hey, my shrubberies are in the right of way. I'm in violation of a city code. So once you get together any kind of documentation or a presentation that you would like to present to, whether it just be the brokers in charge or to the local Board of Realtors, I mean, I think that would be a good place for you to start, and I'll be happy to help you set that up.
Could we possibly add garbage carts and
Yes.
overflowing trash carts?
Yes.
Could we make it like a day?
Absolutely.
Things we'd like to
I mean,
talk about.
I mean, that's the way they can pass it on to their homeowners and, you know, the people that rent their homes as well. So I think that's a good place to start. Like I say, education is definitely going to be the answer to, and, you know,
I agree, because there is such a turnover. The market is so hot right now. We're, you know, even when Scott's doing trash cart violations, you know, we're having to go back and check to make sure that the person that owned it last week, or not last week, but a month ago when we sent a violation to, it's the same person. So that we're not giving the new person the $100 fine that the old person should have gotten, because it's the new person's first time, not his third time. So we would be happy to work with the Realtors Association and present to them. I think that would be very helpful for us.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, this was an introductory to what we'll be working on. So, you know, again, the feedback is certainly valued. We'll continue to meet as a group to develop the policy handbook, because, you know, as we talked about in our last meeting, this isn't a month project, this is a year project, and multiple years. And then once we get done, we get to start back over again. So the consistency side of this is going to be very important, and it, you know, the same people that do this job, when we're going back to round two, it might not be there. So that's why the importance of that. And when we get that draft policy document, we'll want to share that with council so that you can take a look at it and you can help carry the torch with this, because we will need a lot of help wherever we can get it. And, you know, probably be good to even bring the planning board in on this and let them know about this information and what our efforts are, because they're in the community as well. So we appreciate it.
So now a little bit of clarification though. So you're considering clearing 12 foot either side of the pavement, right?
As long as it does not exceed the right-of-way limits, yes, sir.
Right. But it may not be the whole right of way.
On places like North
Where
New
you
River.
got like 100 foot.
Where there's 100-foot right-of-way, it will not be the entire right-of-way. Unless there is a utility issue, a break or something, where Price has to go out there and actually clear where the pipe is, because
Right.
all the pipes may not be within the 12 feet, or all the services or whatnot. So there may be a time that he has to go out and clear, you know, additional area. But what we're going to start with trying to enforce is the 12-foot. And it's our hope that as one district starts getting cleared, people in all the other districts realize that we were actually serious. And
Right.
so that hopefully as we go through the districts, there will be less violators continuing.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, and I appreciate all the work that y'all have put into this and all the work that you're gonna have coming forward. Okay, next is advisory board appointments. And I think we have two people that have applied for Enhancement and Beautification Committee, and Richard Vessus and Desiree Tehran. Is that all that's applied, Stephanie?
Yes, sir. So we have two applicants, and we have one seat open on the Enhancement and Beautification Committee. They were both received on May the 17th. Mr. Vesters came in at 8 p.m. at night, and Ms. Tehran's came in at 10:05 a.m. Their information and applications have been provided for you for review, so it'll be up to the board for placement of one new member on the Enhancement and Beautification Committee.
So Desiree's was earlier.
Yes, and all I need is a consensus, because this will go on consent agenda for the July 6th meeting. So consensus from the board on which member they would like to move forward with.
Okay, any discussions?
I recommend Desiree Terry.
Okay,
Looking over the applications and all, I think, and Jeremy being the liaison for that committee, I think that's a wise choice based on the resumes they sent in for it, and I'll support that.
Okay, is, anybody else got anything to say?
I'm in agreement with.
Okay, do we have a consent that, Desiree will be put on the, thing? Raise your hand. Okay. There is a consent that, Desiree will be the nominee.
No, sir.
Okay, next is, ordinance amendment, section 17, stopping, standing, and parking. Who's got that?
So we have had a request to make an addition for the parking, or for, excuse me, for section 17, which is stopping, standing, and parking. Mr. Torres and Ms. Batts have
okay, that's what
asked
it is.
for an addition of this as a discussion item, so I will turn it over to Mr. Torres.
That's the number 7?
So this is item number 6. For the ordinance amendment, you were wanting to add the handicap, and then for the fee schedule, it would be number 7 is the fee schedule.
Okay. So as we discussed, so they are both intertwined, related?
Yes, they're related.
Okay,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
So for stopping, standing, and parking, again, it's going into allowing those that have literally bled on our behalf. Those are the ones that have been awarded the Purple Heart. And then those that have been awarded a Medal of Honor who are willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice based on their heroism. I think it would be prudent if we would allow those to park in these designated spaces at no charge. So I propose that we make an amendment to reflect that.
Okay. Have any discussion on that?
I'd just like to say that the Purple Heart and Disabled Veteran is linked to their license tag, correctly, Dwight?
Correct.
So the parking service could easily identify who was parking there by their license plate. They wouldn't have additional information. It's still related to their license plate.
Okay, do they register?
I was going to say, that's probably just a choice, I would think, or an option. I don't know the specific DMV rules, so there still might be some validation per se that would need to come in for the license plate registration. I'll have to look at that, but administratively, we can figure out the solution if council wants to add this to the ordinance, and we would put it in the section where we offer the discounts to the
Yes,
veterans.
so for those that are clearly identified because of their registration, easy to do. And for those that want to apply,
Yes.
they can just show the DD 214, which will show that.
Yeah, I just want to, okay, we'll just make sure that they know to redact some information, because we probably don't want social security numbers, et cetera, that get transmitted. But I'll work with the parking company. We'll have the ordinance to effectuate the change if council wants to have the consensus to move that forward.
I just want to say real quick, besides this being probably the most military-friendly community on the coast, it's for the price that these guys paid, it shouldn't be optional for us. I mean, I think we're on the same page about that for sure. So I agree with you 100%.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
My question, I got a question.
Sorry.
Dwight, these people, people are people, and they'll figure out stuff. Is there any way that somebody can forge this, or where we have, for example, 50 people that is either a disabled veteran,
We're not talking about disabled veterans, we're talking
about Purple Hearts,
or Medal of Honor.
Medal of Honor.
That's not-
There's no way for anybody, just Joe Blow citizen, to get this.
No, when they apply for that license, they have to bring proof to get that license assigned to them, which comes in a form of a DD 214. So we're talking about 1% of our citizenry that serve, and it's going to be a small micro of that are going to be qualified for this. So
Right.
I don't expect this number to be big. I just want to afford them the opportunity.
Okay.
You have a valid point, but I don't think that that's something that can occur.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Let me make a comment. I think that we've got some verbiage in our ordinance that allows the town manager to take this in consideration based on the council's consensus or decisions to move forward. And I don't have a problem with the Purple Heart and the Medal of Honor winners and doing that. And as Mr. Torres said and Mr. Shugarts said as well, we are a military community, close proximity to Camp Lejeune. We have a lot of military families here, and anytime we can do something for our military that can be consistent for those that has served us and served us faithfully, I think that's good. So I don't have a problem with the Purple Heart and the Medal of Honor moving forward.
Well, I'd like to thank my colleagues for at least considering that. Thank you.
So the ordinance amendment will be placed on the July 6th consent agenda for, for passing at that time. So as long as there's a consensus today to move forward, we're good with that.
okay. Do we have a consensus? Yes, and appreciate it, gentlemen, and I'm sure that all the military people will appreciate it. And of course, a lot of these Purple Hearts are retired people, but after spending time at Camp Lejeune, they decided to retire in this area. And that's why we've got a lot of retirees here.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The only thing that I add to that is with all the multiple deployments in the past 2 decades, you're going to find some that are not retired. They're medically
I know to be-
retired,
I know to be
medically
some,
retired as a
yeah.
result of those injuries.
Right.
But thank you.
Yes, sir. But what I like about it is they like our community enough to stay here after they get out. So anyway, brings a lot to the community. Okay, I think that's about it. We've covered everything, so if nobody has anything else, has our manager got anything he wants to add?
You know, I could talk all day about things going on, but I don't have anything specific.
Okay, buddy.
I've got one thing, Mayor. I'm not exactly sure, Amy, you might be able to answer this question for me. Our rollback cart policy, what does that policy state? Does the state roll it out of the right of way? Or what is that? We've gotten some emails about situations like that. And I know that one of the emails, I'll just go ahead and say, one of the emails I got is talking about trash can filling up with water. Well, wind will blow that lid open, regardless of where it's at, if it's where you can get to it, and if it's outside. But if our rollback policy is out of the right of way and we're doing that, then that's something they're gonna have to address and not us.
So that's a tricky situation. The rollback, the ordinance says that you have to roll it back 30 feet from the right of way or past I believe it's the front plane of the house. Because like on the ocean side, you'd be rolling it over the dune. So that is the requirement. We, as far as from a ticketing standpoint or whatnot, as long as it is back close to the house and out of the right of way. Because 30 foot on a lot of places would put it in the backyard or whatnot. The ordinance requires that it be rolled back with the next day. Scott does this every day, or Wednesday and Thursday.
Morning, Mayor, morning, Council. So the way the ordinance is written is that the carts can be rolled down no earlier than 12 o'clock the day prior to pickup. They have to be rolled back no later than 6 p.m. the day after pickup, regardless of the end that it happens on.
Yeah, so any example that I'll use from the email that I think we all received, Onslow County, the canals in particular get picked up on Tuesday, correct?
So
So
that's correct.
with the way you describe the ordinance, I understand that to be that they would not be able to roll out their trash until midday Monday.
It would be midday Monday.
And I know that we all know that most people, or a fair amount of people, leave on Sunday. So the way it's written, they're going to be not in compliance to begin with.
So that comes back to the original contract that we had. The original contract allowed for the actual service to roll out your trash cart for you as well as roll it back. We have not been enforcing the roll out portion of it until we're able to work through the contract and whatnot. Kyle has been working with Waste Management, or is it Waste Management? GFL now. Has been working with our current provider to try to get some things worked out. That is something that we're working on, and that ordinance may be revised once we get something worked out. But on the canals, and we have been telling people this, we are not enforcing the rollout because we have not provided an option that works for it. We've been enforcing the rollback because we do provide an option that allows it to be rolled back without you actually being here.
Thank you, Amy. If you have time, Scott, Amy, and Kyle, after this meeting, I just would like to talk a little bit more about the subject. Thank you.
And as far as the lids being left open, sometimes when the mechanical arm picks it up and slams it back down, the lid it flips over. And that's what's happening on some of them. If they're not enrolled in rollback, and it's like the other Friday when it fell a flood, all of those carts, any one that the lid happened to pop open would have been pretty full by the end of the day. So, but that's just when it sets down, sometimes it just pops right back open.
Scott is working with them, so if they've got to roll back, then he doesn't ticket them.
Yes, sir. So when Scott goes out and does his, takes his pictures of everybody that's in violation of the ordinance, he then comes back, he verifies who owns it versus who used to own it, that kind of stuff. He verifies whether or not they're enrolled in rollback. If they are enrolled in rollback, we delete that, or we either make a note in the record and delete it.
I will add, there's one issue that does make that a little bit more difficult, and it's that the Onslow County properties on the canal streets. There's a little bit of a time delay between enrollment and when it showed that they're enrolled. And whenever I deal with those property owners, I always let them know about that. Just in case I write them a citation, they just know all they have to do is get a hold of me, and then I'll try to backtrack that through the system. Just because of that unique situation that exists for the canals that doesn't really exist on the south end of the island.
The canals being billed through Onwassa, we don't have access to their sewer water billing software. We have access to all of Pender County, all of the Pender County portion, which is billed through Surf City. So in that, we can go in and look and see exactly what day it's done. For the Onslow County portion, we receive a spreadsheet on a monthly
Basis from Dawn Taylor.
So we go back and verify, and if we mistakenly gave you a ticket because we hadn't gotten the spreadsheet yet, then we void it in the system. So trash carts is a lot of work.
And unfortunately for us, when this contract was written and we walked through all of the details, that was 2 separate companies ago, as this company, what the original contract was tailored for, the company has switched hands twice. So the equipment that they use and the service that they give was not what we understood whenever we entered into a contract back in 2019.
Adjourn. I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
We are adjourned.